So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by clicking on the PayPal link in the description box, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Also, leave us a thumbs up. It helps us get more views.
This Cy Hersh report, the most respected journalist in the world, a liberal, meeting with the FBI, meeting with the NSA, meeting with ambassadors. They were tracking Seth Rich. He's the WikiLeaker, not the Russians. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the second day of August 2017 on this Wednesday worldwide global transmission. First off, out of the gates, two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Cy Hersh has already written months ago that he talked to U.S. intelligence and a top British ambassador who have actually met with high-level U.S. intelligence officers as well that have confirmed that Seth Rich was the leaker to WikiLeaks. We have Julian Assange publicly, within a week of Seth Rich being gunned down, shot in the back, saying that they don't ever give up sources, but that basically Seth Rich was their source and it should be investigated along those lines. We now have intel coming out that you have these Islamic brothers from Pakistan in control of the Democratic Party servers and that Seth Rich was reportedly that night at a party with them. You have Debbie Wasserman Schultz threatening the D.C. police that she is over as a representative of that area, saying, I'll cut your funding if you don't give back their laptops. And then you have them in the news saying, don't ever question Seth Rich's murder. Don't look at it or we'll basically have somebody sue you. Well, this is Cy Hersh, ladies and gentlemen. The article's on Infowars.com. The video and audio is on Infowars.com, and there is a total MSM blackout on two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning author who also exposed that ISIS and Al-Qaeda were being run by Obama. By the way, he's a liberal, a classical liberal. But he has a conscience. He's credited with ending the Vietnam War with his stories on the My Lai massacre, you name it. The guy that spurred Walter Cronkite to say the war was unwinnable because it wasn't meant to be won. Media completely ignores bombshell Seymour Hersh revelations on Seth Rich. Not a single MSM outlet has covered the story. The audio tape obtained by Big League Politics, Hersh says he saw an FBI report leaked to him by an insider, which confirms that Rich had contacted WikiLeaks with sample emails from DNC Leaker and asked for payment for the full data dump. And it goes on from there. And he has multiple ambassadors telling him the same thing. One of these ambassadors has gone public to say he met with U.S. intelligence and they showed him the files that Rich was reportedly out there trying to sell the data. Isn't that interesting? Well, they don't want you to hear it. We've had to bleep it, but this is the candid recording of Cy Hersh. Here is that report.
About the kid, and I'll tell you what I know. What I know comes off an FBI report. Don't ask me how you can figure out. I've been around long enough. The kid gets, I don't think he was murdered. I don't think he was murdered because of what he knew. The kid's a nice boy, 27. He was not an IT expert, but he learned stuff. He was a data programmer, but he learned stuff. And so he's living on one street somewhere. He's living in a very rough neighborhood. And in the exact area where he'd been, there've been about 10. I'm sure you know this. There've been about 8 or 9 or 10 violent, robberies. Most of them with somebody brandishing a gun. And it's the kid's hands. I'm telling you, I'm sure you know it. His hands were marked up. The cops concluded he fought off the people, tried to run, and they shot him twice in the back with a .22, small caliber. And then the kids that did it ran. They got scared, didn't take his wallet. Okay, so what the cops do then, and here's what nobody knows, what I'm telling you. Now, maybe you know something about it. When you have a death like that, DC cops, if you're dead, you generally don't just go. You have to find out what's going on. You have to get to the kid's apartment and see what you can find. If he's dead, you don't need a warrant, but most cops get a warrant because they don't know if the guy has a roommate. You need a warrant, so they get a warrant. I'm just telling you, there is such a thing. They go in the house and they can't do much with his computer, his password. The cops don't know much about it. So the DC cops, they have a cyber unit in DC, and they're more sophisticated. They come and look at it. The idea is maybe he's had a series of exchanges with somebody who says, I'm going to kill you, motherfucker, over a girl, and they can't get in. The cyber guys do a little better, but they can't make sense of it. So they call the FBI cyber unit. The DC unit, the Washington field office, is a hot shit unit. The guy running the Washington field office, he's like a 3-star at an army base. He's already looking for 4. You know what I mean? He's going to go with a top job. There's a cyber unit there that's excellent. What you get in a warrant, the public information you get in a warrant doesn't include, it does not include the affidavit underlying why you're going in, what the reasons are. That's almost never available on. I can tell you that. The existence of a warrant is a public document 99% of the time. So on the same warrant, they call in the Fed. The Feds get through, and here's what they find. This is according to the FBI report. What they find is he makes first of all, you have to know some basic facts. One of the basic facts is there's no DNC or Podesta email that exists beyond May 21st, 22nd. It's the last email from either one of those groups. And so what the report says that sometime in late spring, we're talking about June, summer's in June 21st. Late spring would be after, I presume, I don't know. I just say it says late spring, early summer. He makes contact with WikiLeaks. That's in his computer, and he makes contact. Now, I have to be careful because I met Julian 10, 12 years. I stay the fuck away from people like that. And he said, invited me, and when I'm in London, I always get a message, come see me as the Ecuadorian ambassador, and there's no fuck you, I'm going there. I've got enough trouble without getting photographed by every fucking age. He's under total surveillance by everybody. And anyway, they found what he had done. He had submitted a series of documents, of emails, some juicy emails from the DNC. And, by the way, all this shit about the DNC, whether hacked or wasn't hacked, but whatever happened, the Democrats themselves wrote this shit. You know what I mean? All I know is that he offered a sample, an extensive sample, I'm sure dozens of emails, and said, I want money. That later, WikiLeaks did get the password. He had a Dropbox, a protected Dropbox, which isn't hard to do. I mean, you don't have to be a wizard, IT wizard. He was certainly, he's not a dumb kid. They got access to the Dropbox. He also, and this is also in the FBI report, he also let people know with whom he was dealing. And I don't know how he dealt. I'll tell you about WikiLeaks in a second. I don't know how he dealt with the WikiLeaks and the mechanism. But he also, the word was passed according to the FBI report. I also shared this box with a couple of friends. So if anything happens to me, it's not going to solve your problem. Okay? I don't know what that means. I don't know whether he was, anyway. But WikiLeaks got access, and before he was killed, I can tell you right now, Brennan's an asshole. I've known all these people for years. Clapper's sort of a better guy, but now rocket scientist. The NSA guy is a fucking moron. And the trouble with all those guys is that the only way they're going to make it to a board or two and get hired by SAIC to deliver some fat cat contracts is if Hillary stayed in. With Trump, they're gone. They're done. They're going to live on their pension. They're not going to make it. And I got to tell you, guys in that job, they don't want to live on their pension. They want to be on boards like they're make $600,000 for going to 4 visits. I have somebody on the inside. I've been around a long time and I write a lot of stuff. I have somebody on the inside who will go and read a file for me. This person is unbelievably accurate and careful. He's a very high-level guy. He'll do a favor. You're just going to have to trust me. I have what they call it in my business, long-form journalism. I have a narrative of how that whole fucking thing began. It's a Brennan operation. It was an American disinformation. And the fucking president, at one point when they even started telling the press, they were back briefing the press. The head of the NSA was going and telling the press, this fucking cocksucker Rogers, was telling the press that we even know who in the GRU, the Russian military intelligence service, leaked it. I mean, all bullshit. They were telling these. I worked at the New York Times for fucking years, and the trouble with the fucking New York Times is they have smart guys, but they're totally beholden on sources. If the president or the head of the CIA tells them something, they actually believe it. I was hired at the Times to write about, to go after the war, in the Vietnam War in '72. because they were just locked in. So that's what the Times is. These guys run the fucking Times. And Trump's not wrong. I mean, I wish he would calm down and had a better press secretary. You have to be so... Trump's not wrong to think they all fucking lied about him.
There's Cy Hersh, the greatest living journalist, and he likes Trump. He's the most famous journalist the last 100 years, totally documented, coming out in a new report saying he talked to high-level U.S. government officials, ambassadors, you name it. They were watching Seth Rich. They were trying to get into the DNC systems. The DNC hadn't let them in. They knew it was being penetrated. They were watching Seth Rich trying to sell the data to WikiLeaks. And you have WikiLeaks saying, right after he got shot in the back, that, yes, he was their source. Now we have Cy Hersh confirming all of it. We have the identity of the DNC leaker, and it's not a Russian, ladies and gentlemen. Here is Julian Assange from right after it happened, saying, I investigated both presidential candidates and only Clinton has ties to Russia. And then you actually look at who did the uranium deal, who got the $100 million for the bank deal, who met with Putin in secret, who had Mueller take illegal uranium samples to a tarmac to meet with the Russians in Europe for the Clintons. Who can make this up? Hillary used the State Department as a whole parallel government, sometimes even against Obama's policies and other globalist policies, running her own system. She was co-president for 8 years with Bill. She was co-president for 8 years with Obama. And that's why the deep state's so arrogant. You've got all these different factions doing whatever they want and nobody looking out for the American people. And here comes Trump saying, we're going to have bids again. We're going to actually cut taxes. We're actually going to secure the border. We're actually going to do the right thing for this country. We're actually going to get the stock market boosted. We're actually going to bring back 1,000+ companies that are already here. And the Federal Reserve, private, independent from government, its own fourth branch. That's the former head of the Federal Reserve's own words. Congress and the president can do nothing, they claim. Well, Congress should actually repeal the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and we're close to doing it, so we can do something. But they said they're above the law and have raised interest rates 4 times, they say, to stop the Trump recovery. And they cheer, yay! The Rasmussen polls down to 38. Gallup's down to 34. Well, that's because Gallup isn't as fake as Rasmussen. Just like all those clips and all those news articles during the campaign, when Trump was 15, 20 points behind, then he won. It's called fake polls. That's coming up in the next segment. Here is Julian Assange.
Hillary Clinton has done quite well strategically to try and draw connection between Trump and Russia because she has so many connections of her own. Now, my analysis of Trump and Russia is that there is no substantial connection. Why do I say that? Well, because Trump was trying to invest in Russia before Putin in the 1990s, after Putin, in fact, nearly all the way up to the present moment. And he's had no success. He did not manage to build hotels and so on in Russia. So that shows how insubstantial his contacts are. There's an extremely well-documented pattern of when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, those people, companies, governments, who wanted a decision by the Secretary of State in their favor, making large donations to the Clinton Foundation or in some other cases, business deals with the people around Hillary Clinton. Now, one particular instance is the approval by Secretary Clinton of selling 20% of the U.S. uranium reprocessing rights to a Russian company to be exported to Russia. So at that time, a large donation was made by those Russian interests to the Clinton Foundation. In addition, Clinton's campaign manager, Podesta, was on the board of a company called Joule Unlimited. And Joule Unlimited held some of these rights and received a $35 million investment from Russia.
And there's a bunch of others as well. That's old news, but there's Assange telling the truth. Meanwhile, Trump has been bullied into signing the legislation for more sanctions against Russia today. and he's being basically bullied into troop increases, you name it, so he can prove he's not a Russian agent. He's not even supposed to talk to Putin at dinner, or he's a Russian agent. It's one of the only areas that Trump has been manipulated into a corner. And notice it's only made them say he's more of a Russian agent.
If you're interested to learn how to create content and spread content, we'll show you how. Go to the Operation How YouTube channel, click on the About button, and then click Message. Send us an email. If you want to engage, become an info warrior, we will train you up.
If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon below the video to get notified when the latest new content drops.
Keep us in your prayers. We get a lot of resistance for putting these videos out, but to Yahweh be the glory.